What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're at the end of a build, so our chains are coming off, and those chains are put up on our building to brace it temporarily while we're building the structure. We're here on the biggest building we've ever built. I got a playlist for this build. You can check it out. It was crazy, a lot of work for a couple guys. But the point of this video is now that we're done, I'm gonna put up permanent bracing, and I'm gonna take you guys through some of the different types of permanent bracing that we do, the purpose of it, and how we do it. So let's get into it. All right, so the first permanent bracing piece that I'm gonna do, it's gonna replace these chains that you see behind me in the X. Now that X is basically locking in our walls during the build so it can't rock side to side. Gives us a lot of assurance that the building's not gonna fall over during the framing stage. Now that the steel is up here, it's installed, that is our diaphragm. That's like, think about a person. If you were to just stand a skeleton up, it would probably fall over. But when you put skin, muscle, tissue, ligaments, all that good stuff, it holds it together. So what we've got here is now our skin. And while I'm no engineer, I do believe that it would take a massive windstorm to push this whole building over. I'd probably lose a roof before that happened because I got 304 feet of a steel diaphragm wall, but we're gonna still do bracing anyway because it's probably good practice and the way I can share with you guys, what we do. So we're gonna remove the chains and we're gonna put in a permanent wood bracing. It's gonna act in the exact same way. So that is the first set of permanent bracing. I'll get the measurements, we'll do some math, we'll make some cuts, and then we'll do the install. So what I need to know is my width and my height between a section of posts. It doesn't matter. I always go ahead and put my bracing in my corners. I don't know, it just feels like that's a good place to put it. There is not a specific spot. I could do it here, I could do it there. It's gonna act the same way, but I like to always come and do it in my corners. So 87 3/8, and we're gonna do one on both sides of this corner. 85 and 87 3/8. I kind of know this height, but we're still gonna measure it. Pretty much the same. Okay. All right, so I've got my measurements. This is actually when I cut these two corner bracings, it's gonna be the same for that corner, and that corner. So the nice thing is once I get these dimensions, I can go ahead and cut all these up pretty efficiently, and then we'll get to the install. But I'll show you guys how I figure up my angles and what we're gonna do. Let's go draw a picture. That always works well. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We've got our post, right? Right now, we've got our chain kind of going like this. Kind of just, I don't wanna make it too dark, but going across a couple posts. We're gonna come in, and a lot of times I see guys, they will take a board and they'll go top to bottom, like so. Problem is with tall walls, this is not very strong. Once this passes 45 degrees, it becomes a lot less weak. So what we do is we just say, you know what? We're gonna do all of ours, we're gonna cut them in half, and we're gonna do a double X. This is an engineered solution that I had on a job previously on a huge commercial building, like 80 by 200 commercial building. And I thought, you know what? If the engineer puts this double X in instead of this, that's how we're gonna do it. So what I need to do is I know this is 16 6.5, and I know this was like 80 something, I don't know, 85 inches and a half, I think. I got to double check that. I need to cut this in half, and then I'm going to figure out these boards, and they should be the same as long as I do all the math correctly. So I need to verify this dimension real quick. Okay, this is actually 85. So I'm actually not going to do the 16 6.5 because that is a full measurement down to the bottom of my grade board. This is going to get concrete up 4 inches on the bottom grade board. So I'm going to take 4 inches off of this dimension here. We're going to go with 16 foot 2 inch 1/2, 16 foot 2 inch 1/2 divided by 2. So now I know, boom, cut that in half. This is 8 1 1/4. So now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat this as a smaller square. I need to figure out what my length is and also what the angle pitch cuts are going to be on these boards. Now, this is something that it took me a really long time to figure out, so I'm just going to draw it for you so this makes sense. This 8 1 1/4. This is 85. it's not as simple as just doing 85-inch run, 8 foot, 1 inch, 1/4 rise, okay? Run, rise. That will give me this dimension, which is 10, 9, and 3/16. That is not exactly what I need because that is from this point to this point. Problem is, that's not where my board is, okay? My board is actually a 2x6. So now it's going to be from here to this point and here down 5.5. Does that make sense? So it's not actually this to this. I have to subtract and change up some of my dimensions. And I might lose a couple of you because this is a lot of math. I totally get it. And just go ahead and skip through if you don't really care and you just want to see us frame them. But what I have to do is I know this angle because I just put it in, and that pitch is 48.85. So this is 48.85 degrees right here. Because I know that, what I can do is I can start to figure out this little triangle here and reduce this dimension from this full triangle, which I know is 8 foot 1 1/4, so that I can find this diagonal here. So once I know this, that is going to be the same dimension that I'm going to cut my board at. So hopefully I didn't lose you guys. Hopefully that makes sense. You have to do a little bit of math to figure this out. So 48.85. So now I got this little triangle here, right? This angle's 48.85. So is this angle right there, okay? That's just laws. That's the way it goes. If you make this a square, you got 90, you got 90. This has to equal 90, this has to equal 90, and these two opposite angles are the same, okay? So 48.85 pitch, and I know this is a 2x6, right? So I know this is my rise is 5.5, 5-inch, 1/2 rise. So we're gonna take this little circle, and I hope I don't lose too many of you, okay? We're going to draw it just a little bit bigger, okay? So this is my 48.85. Now, if we were to take this, turn this into a square, okay? This is 48.85. This is 48.85. This is 90. This is 90. So to figure out this dimension and this angle dimension, what I'm trying to eventually find out is this right here, right? So I can do it a couple different ways. For me, the easiest thing to do is to turn this into a triangle, okay? This is 90. I can use this angle right here, which is 90 minus 48.85. So this is 41.15 degrees here. That is my pitch. Now I know this is 5.5 because this is a 2x6. That's my rise. 5.5 rise. That means it's going to give me my diagonal of 8 3/8. Boom. This dimension is this dimension that I need to subtract off of my 8 1 1/4 so that I can find this dimension right here to then figure out this. So it's kind of like you got to work all the way back, and I'm probably just lost everybody on this whole tutorial. So if you made it through, kudos to you. I think this is all correct. I haven't done this in a while, and I'm actually just thinking through it to make sure that I'm not explaining it absolutely horrendously. If you break down a bunch of triangles and use the Pythagorean theorem, or honestly the Construction Master Pro, to just do rise over run, you can figure out all this stuff. But anyway, let's keep moving forward. Hey, welcome back, guys. If you just skipped all of that math, now we're going to go ahead and use that math to apply it to find out the exact boards that we're going to cut. 46.28 pitch and 10-3 diagonal. So all that math to figure out how I'm going to cut this first board. And because I don't trust myself, I trust the math, I'm going to cut one. I'm going to go over there, make sure it fits how I like it. And then if it does work, then I can cut all 4 corners. I've got 16 total boards, and they will all be the exact same. And then we can do the install. So let's go ahead and set up my square. 46.28 pitch. What I like to do in my calculator, Construction Master Pro, if I hit pitch a couple times, it'll give me 12 9/16. So I can take my square here. This Martinez is awesome. I run it over to 12 and 9/16. And on this side, I'm going to set it at 12. Hard to see it in here. It's got these little fingers. So I set it at 12, 12 and 9/16. And now this is going to give me the pitch I need for my cut. So all I need to do is just verify that I'm going the right way here. Because sometimes when it's like close to 12, I got to double check. Okay, yes, we're good. Now remember that 10'3" diagonal dimension. We're gonna measure point, long point to short point, 10'3". And how embarrassing would it be if this wasn't right, you know? Yeah. Okay, so because it's an equal angle, I'm just coming down here and my long point becomes my short point. Well, let's cross our fingers, guys. So this is cut to go into this bay. And I want to make sure that, remember, I'm 4 inches off the ground or off the bottom of the grade board. So if I put this in here, all right, so that, when I put it in there, my pitch cut looks beautiful, and I should be roughly, call it 8'1" from here to the top of that. And it looks like 8'1" is just below that girt, which is where I'm at. So I'm gonna call this pretty darn good. So let's go ahead and cut up. Actually, I only need to do 7 more, and then I'll go ahead and I'll do the same math. We'll get all these cut, and then I'll show you how we install them. I'm curious how many people got through even a minute of that math and said, screw this, I'm just gonna put my board up on the wall and scribe it. Because that's the other thing you could do, is you could figure out where you're gonna put your board and just scribe it on your post. But this math doesn't take me very long, and once you learn it, it's super easy to just set up at a sawhorse. You know exactly what it should be, and you just cut them all at once, and you're not walking around the job site scribing boards to your post to do all your, you know, blocking. I don't know. I feel like that's very doable though. So I'm just curious, how many are never going to use the math and just going to scribe it to their post? Okay. Go ahead and take 3 over there, and we'll join forces with the one that we've already got. All right, so I got my 2 sections cut. I've got 2 chunks of treated grade board, and what I'm gonna do with these is, there's always a scenario where I'm gonna have one of these against the girts, and then the overlapping one is gonna be over top. So I'm gonna put this in here as a spacer block. So this first one is gonna go up against the bracket, and no, I do not take into account the bracket or even really those lags that are there, but they should be out of my way. So the 1/8 inch of the bracket, I don't consider that worth my time to figure out. It just means that I might have a little bit of a gap somewhere because of the different dimension. But I'm just gonna make myself a 4-inch mark, and that's where we're gonna start this. Now, I gotta be careful because these are 3 1/8. I don't want them to stick out. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and hit them on just a slight angle, except where I have a rib there. I'm just gonna load this sucker up because I don't have to really worry about anything. So whenever I see a rib location, that's where I'm gonna put the majority of my nails if I can, and I'm just gonna go straight in. So now this block, this will probably make sense. This is gonna be in 1.5 inches, like so. Now I can toenail into the post. I just figured at the bottom, it adds a little bit of additional strength to go ahead and have this here. So I will toenail that. And then we're gonna hit this connection. Now, if anybody is an actual engineer, has some understanding of post frame design, I would love for you to comment on just how effective these permanent bracings in the walls are when the entire shell is finished with steel. I think this is a waste of my time. It's a waste of my client's money, but every post frame gets bracing in it like this, and I don't know if it's actually for during the construction process or if this wall bracing is for the longevity. I would obviously talk to any local engineer or anybody that's doing your plans to make sure that they're standing behind whatever the bracing schedule is. This is just how I've always been taught to do it, how I've always seen it in any engineer drawing that we've done, and so that's why we do it. Who does not like this grade board? Holy cow. I think I'm gonna cut that off. That bolt head is sticking out. I don't want that to, I want this to be nice and tight against my bracket. Yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, that's about all we can do on the ground. We'll go up in the lift and wrap this up. So obviously, I think it kind of goes without saying the importance of this cut being really freaking close is that the tighter it is, the more structure it's going to give to the overall, you know, strength of this design. If you're just literally touching just a little bit of a tip, it's not going to be as strong. All right, so that's the permanent bracing. We do it on our builds. Like I said, I don't know that it is 100% necessary once this is entirely built, but we do it. It makes us feel better, and I definitely would recommend it if, you know, you have tons of big doors, big openings in your building, because without the steel, you don't get that diaphragm strength, and then this is what will aid in that. So it's definitely recommended if you have big openings, but a wall like this that's 304 foot by 96 foot with complete steel enclosure, it's probably not necessary. Let's go ahead, and the next thing we're going to do is, if you look up here, you see where our wind ties are dying into the end wall at each column, okay? We need to now do a permanent bracing. I don't know what the real term is, but we call them kickers, and it's going to be a angle brace that is going to tie in the bottom cord of our truss to the top cord of the truss where the roof is, so that those two planes move with each other and you don't get a wind load pushing on the middle of the wall and it moving in and out versus the roof kind of staying put because of all the steel up there. Very similar. I need to get some dimensions. I need to do some math. I'll make some cuts. Same math as figuring up this. You're going to use rise, run, diagonal dimensions, and then I'll show you what the kicker is after I make a couple cuts. All right, I know pictures are always better than explaining it because I'm a horrible explainer. So here's what we're gonna do. This is my end wall, right? So we're looking at it at a cross section. This is my truss, this is my wall. And then I've got another truss here, another truss here, so on and so forth, every 8 foot, right? What I've also got is I've got a 2x4 wind tie that goes all the way across just like this, okay? Then up here, I've got my purlins. Those are going all the way across here, and that's what my roof is on. What we are going to do is brace from here to here. Each post is going to get a brace from the bottom to the top. And what this does is it locks these two planes in together so that they move together, not independently, okay? And it provides loading on this wall, because this tall wall, this is I think 14 foot or so here. And if I don't have anything here, the wind can blow here, hit this point, push this in. I've seen this in person. This is locked in, it doesn't move. However, this can if you push in and don't have your angle bracing. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do the same math. I've just got a triangle that I gotta figure out, and I'll get them cut, and then we'll go install them, and then that'll give you an even better idea. The other thing is, remember we talked about 45 degrees? I try to keep these angle bracers in the 45 degree range or less for strength. So as I go up my roof, like I said, I get to a point where I think the very peak is 13.5 or 8 or 10 or something like that. That won't work going straight up and down. I will have to actually go 2 bays. And we only usually have to do that when we have really large buildings such as this that are going 96 foot. That'll add a little bit of complication, and as I go, I'll just check this dimension, and when this angle starts getting, you know, much greater than 45, then I'll have to go to a double bay. So, all right, I'm gonna make a bunch of cuts. All right, good. So just to kind of share with you guys what I gotta do for these kickers is, this is like a picture of my truss, right? It's got a raised bottom chord, and we've got a pitched roof on the top. So what I've gotta do is, as I go up the hill, up the post, not only do I have to figure out my rise run, but I also have to figure out the rise at each location here. So what I've done is I've calculated at each post what kind of rise I'm gonna have from heel height. So the heel height is out here at the bottom, and that's what I use to calculate everything. So when I'm doing this, I first have to figure this out. Then what I have to do is figure out the pitch from here. If we were to have this triangle to this post, this triangle to this post, the rise from heel up to here, that's this dimension. Then what I have to do is I have to subtract the difference in the bottom chord rise. Then I have to use my math that I did on the same as the wall angles to reduce the dimension so that I don't add in this distance here, because remember, it's not this point to this point, it's actually reduced by this angle's dimension of the 2x6. Then once I get all that information, then I can calculate my kicker. So I'm calculating my diagonal. This is what I'll cut the length, and this is the angle that I will put on each one. So I've got one more to do, and then I'll start my cuts. I just wanted to show you guys that this isn't as easy to just go up and hold boards up there and try to get everything and just scribe it. So understanding the math for this is a lot easier, because I can do all this work from the comfort of down here on the ground instead of up there in the trusses trying to figure out where all my blocking goes. The problem is there's a lot of steps here, and one miscalculation will make this end number wrong, and then it won't work. So I'm going to do all the math. I'm going to cut 1 of each post. I got 4 to cut, so I'll cut 1. I'll verify it before I cut everything. That way I can always shift them down the line if I made a bad cut, and I just have to replace the longest one, if that makes sense. Don't ask me how I've learned that lesson, because I've never made a mistake, but it's a good idea, because in case you do make a mistake, you can just shift all the ones downhill and then just replace your tallest one. So always double check your work. 11/16, 7 foot 9 inch, 3/4 run. Okay, I went ahead and I cut my longest board. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be long enough, but we're gonna go up, we're gonna try it. And if I don't like it, I'll just take it and make it my short board, and I'll redo my math. I'll check my math, but I have a suspicion it's gonna be just good. It is hot up here. Holy cow. All right, so Greg is actually installing wind ties right now, which is another permanent brace. And it's gonna be these boards that you see behind me that go from end column to end column. And there will be one right here. Okay, I think my measurement was 39 and 11/16, and hopefully that is correct. So when I throw this board up here, okay, so 39 11/16 from heel. What that is the pitch of this bottom cord of the truss. That way I know I'm out of the way of it. And when you follow this up, you'll notice the purlin is right at the top of this board basically. And when I put my board just to the right of that purlin to be in plane, it runs right up to the top cord of the truss. So I'm gonna say my angle looks dang near perfect. I'm right dimensionally where I'm supposed to be, and I'm ending up at the top cord right where I'm supposed to be. We're gonna throw some nails in there, and how I'm gonna get up there, I do know. Luckily we don't have wind ties in here yet. All right, so you can see where my kicker comes up, and if I feel right here, I can feel the top of the 2x. So that means I'm right where I wanna be. Also, I use these purlins as a guide because I just follow that post up. That post is underneath this purlin, which means my board is gonna be just offset. We're just gonna fill that up with a bunch of nails, and there we go. The nice thing is on my peak, I've actually got a bunch of these 2x6s already ran. I put up a bunch of temporary bracing, and so I feel pretty good going down this run here. I've got a couple different X's like this with 2x6s, so I don't have to really worry about the peak, and it would have to push this whole interior partition over in order to move it, so I'm not really worried about it anyway, but we're good here. I'm gonna go cut the rest of these. We'll get these installed. And here, booyah, let's go. All right, that is really the third set of permanent bracing that we put in the building. First one being the double X's, second one being the wind ties that I didn't really show being installed that much in this video because it's pretty self-explanatory. We've done it on a lot of our builds. Third being these kickers, that's what we call kickers. And the fourth one we're gonna do tomorrow when we get back here because it's the end of our day-to-day. And it's not always done on every build, but especially big trusses, we got to do some more permanent bracing in the trusses, and I'll show you that when we get back here in the morning. No, I think this is good.
It's kind of toasty.
It's toasty up here, huh? Yeah. All right, guys, so this is going to be the last kind of permanent bracing thing I want to share with you guys, and it's because I actually didn't think it was too worthy of sharing, but I talked about it oh, that seemed a little small for a second. Buddy? I thought it was yours for a second. I shared on Instagram this detail and people were like, wow, I had no clue. That's surprising to me. And I thought, okay, well, I guess we'll share it. So first off, look at this. You got these green tags. So these green tags come from the truss manufacturer, and they say that, hey, you got to have permanent bracing here. So this web is requiring permanent bracing. And the reason is you can see how big it is. It's kind of at an angle. And what happens is when snow load sits on this roof, it's gonna wanna squash the roof down. Now we've already tied our bottom cords and stiffened them up with our wind ties. So that's the one that we talked about a little bit ago. But when the top cord has weight, the bottom cord is stiff, what'll happen is it will wanna squash and it will push these side to side. So we have two options. We can run wind ties on these just like the bottom cord, or in this case, it actually made sense for us because it saved us a full, saved us 38 2x4 16 footers in general for this task that I would have had to regularly buy, and then I would have had to also install. In this case, what we can do is take 2x, and I've always just called these like T-stiffeners, and we're going to place them on the truss like so. And what this is going to do as we fasten this to this web, it's going to not allow it to, well, obviously under the wrong circumstance, it still could, I guess, with a ton of weight. But by doing this, we don't have to run this way, which is actually a big pain in the trusses. And then also it's going to save us a lot of material. There are dimensions that you have to pay attention to. So talk to your engineer if you're going to do this, and he will tell you how small of a piece you can get away with up here. So you can't just put like a 2-foot board here, and you don't necessarily have to go the entire length of it. We're just trying to stop this from getting squashed when there's snow. And we've got to do this on 3 of these webs up here at the top, the longer ones. And the thing is, people are like, well, why can't your truss engineer just engineer the truss so you don't need these? And I think it's a cost savings. I haven't actually asked him, but I can only assume that this is all like MSR grade lumber, which is a machine stress rated lumber. It's expensive. It's not easy to come by, especially larger timber. Like 2x12s are really expensive. So as you get to bigger lumber, it starts to get really expensive to do this. And, you know, Greg and I are cheap labor. I mean, him a lot cheaper than me. No, I'm just joking. But it's also cheap material, 2x. So that's what this is all about. We're gonna go ahead and run this, and then this is our final bracing. And we're putting nails like every like 10 inches or so. Once again, all stuff that you want to check with your engineer. Don't just do it because Kyle did it. So what I do is I just kind of set my board all the way to one side, and then I'm just splitting my difference, so that way I'm as to the middle as possible. Oh, Greg's gonna yell at me. I gotta go this way. That really is a pain for me, but. Another thing is what we can do is, you see how this truss has like this movement? We can use this board as a straightener too. As long as this 2x4 is fairly straight, we can make sure, because obviously the straighter your framing lumber is, the stronger it is. Hence why we're doing this exact task, is to make sure that these boards stay straight. There, this is a good example. This was a nice straight board, but look how jacked this board here in the middle is. So I can just straighten it out. All right, so there you go, guys. This is not an overly complicated video, just something I've had a lot of questions about from people in the comments. So I try to make those videos when I can, when it makes sense. So definitely, if you have questions about the build process, you know, drop a comment down below. This is the permanent bracing we did here on the biggest building we've ever built. There is other permanent bracing that we have done, like shear walls and things, but if we do that, I'll share that with you. And if you're still kind of curious about the design, the build, how things go together, I do have plans that show all these details in their perspective, like areas when they're needed in the certain types of plans that you're, you know, looking at, whether it be a house, a garage, or a shop or something like that. So I'll put a link down below. I usually have that, so check that out if you're interested in just learning more about the design process, the how-to. But like always, if you're enjoying this content, I would appreciate a nice little smash on the like button, or maybe subscribe and follow along for more. So with that, I'm gonna get out of here. We got a lot more of this bracing to just wrap up, but hopefully this helps someone. Catch you later.